Hey guys, it's Ashley with Motivational Momming. I'm just checking in to see how you're doing on this Friday. I'm wanting to talk a little bit about marriage today. I've been getting some interesting questions about mine. If you are married, give me a thumbs up in the comments below. Or even if you're not married, give me a thumbs up so I can see who's watching. I can reach out to you and say hi personally. So my husband's name is Richard, but he goes by Ricky or Rick. So it's funny because a lot of times I think people probably think that I'm having an affair or something because I'll be talking about Richard, my husband, which I'm one of the only ones that calls him that. And then next thing I'll say Ricky, and people are like, hold up, I thought your husband's name was Richard. He's the same person, I promise. I'm a faithful wife. But anyways, I've been getting some messages about our marriage, about how we met, our age difference, and how we make it work. And I am proud to say everybody thinks we're cute. I think it's funny. That's always the word that people say, is that we're cute. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. That's something. He is 8 years older than me, and I love making sure that he always remembers how old I was when he was in college, right? That's just too much fun. But he is going to be 38 this year, and I'm going to be 30. That's so crazy to say, right? I know older people are like, 30's nothing, you're still young. I'm not saying I'm old. I'm just saying, oh my goodness, I'm about to go into a new decade. That's just like wild and exciting. I hear your 30s are like awesome. But this man right here is the man that absolutely changed my life. This is Richard Kegley, or Ricky Kegley, same person. We got married November 30th of 2014, and we were like, hey, we don't want to wait to get married and have a big wedding. We want to get married now. And our awesome pastor said, well, instead of going to the courthouse, why don't I marry you one day after church? And so that is what we did. We met in January of 2014, and we married in November. So it was about 10 months met and married. Totally one of those old school stories. If you had asked me if I would ever do something like that, I'd say absolutely not. That's crazy. You don't know somebody well enough. What are you thinking? But the funny thing is that each of us had dated people for much longer and had not married them. And so it's one of those things, when you know, you know. And I have friends that have gotten married even sooner. And, everybody has their opinion about things. You always hear the same thing of, oh, she must be pregnant, shotgun wedding or something like that. And you know what? It's not your life, right? So if somebody wants to get married, unless you're like their family member or their best friend and you're very concerned and you have reason to believe this is going to be a huge mistake, I'd say just be happy for them, support them, right? So anyways, we didn't have any pushback from our friends and family, thankfully. Everybody loved everybody. We each love our in-laws. I love my in-laws. Ricky loves his. We're very, very fortunate because we've seen how that's not always the case. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at this picture. But the way that we make this work is ultimately respect in every aspect. And what I mean by that is, like, we always put ourselves in one another's shoes. So unless it's like a really good family friend that I know that Ricky wouldn't mind if I was talking to him quick for some reason, I don't just have random guy friends that I text or talk to on the phone. I personally, for my relationship, see that's disrespectful to my husband. I don't want to open the door for anything to possibly happen, right? Because even the best of marriages, y'all, are tested, and anything can happen. And it's foolish to say it can't, because it really can. It doesn't matter how strong of a faith you have or how long you've been married or how much you love your spouse. If you open up some of those doors, you never know what can happen. So you always have to safeguard one another. And that's how marriages last, in my opinion. So anyways, and he does the same for me. It's actually really cute. If he has a female coworker that has to call or reach out to him for any reason, he always lets me know ahead of time. And it's funny because I'm like, babe, I trust you. It's fine. It's not a big deal. And he says, nope, It's important to me that you know ahead of time so there's no room for doubt, there's no question, there's no any of that. And you know, that really makes a girl feel loved. And I know that when I'm open with him, which I stay home, so I don't really come across that many men. And even when I was teaching, I worked with mostly women, right? It just makes you feel really special to know, wow, my husband could be thinking all kinds of things, but he's thinking about, how is my wife going to react? What is my wife going to think? What is going to make her feel the most loved? And that right there is just an incredible feeling. And so that's how he shows me love and respect. And I can honestly say that Richard Lee Kegley still looks at me this exact same way. This is when I was walking down the aisle to him. And he still has that look on his face every day when I see him. When he walks through the door, he's probably just grateful that I'm taking care of the kids at home and taming them so he can get through the door, right? But no, he had tears in his eyes in this as well. And I have another beautiful picture of that. He was just very grateful. He said he waited 31 years to find me. So sweet. And then this was me crying my eyes out. This was our second wedding. So we had our first wedding in November of 2014. And then 6 months later, we had a big wedding, with all of our friends and family and bridesmaids and all that. But if you look at this, I am bawling my eyes out. Now, y'all should have seen me in the first wedding. I know our pastor was like, are you sure you want to do this? No, just kidding. I couldn't breathe. I was so emotional because I was not scared at all. We were talking about that last night. Neither of us had a doubt. Neither of us were scared. I was just so grateful that I finally found my love, right? Because I wasn't one of those that didn't think I'd ever find it. I mean, I was young, right? I was like 24, okay? It was just that I had gone through such heartbreak through certain years up until that point. And I never thought I'd find a love that great. And that's what just had me so emotional. So I got lucky. We got to get married twice and both were very special. But I still look at these pictures and our photographer captured this raw emotion and I love looking back at it. If you were to ask what mine and Ricky's relationship was like in a picture, I have two to explain. We are very competitive with one another. If you've seen any of our videos, we love to prank one another. We are always silly. Now, yes, when you need to be serious, we do respect one another's, when you need to be serious, we can have a serious conversation. But other than that, life is too short and too serious as it is, right? So we always bring to the table just positivity, laughs, and pranks. We're always trying to scare each other. But if you look at our faces really closely, we're both giving each other that, I dare you to smash it in my face look, right? And this one. So this is funny because he was going for the garter, but he's just so silly. It's such a silly picture. I was busting out laughing because, of course, my dad and everybody's around, which just is a tradition, so it was funny. But I was, in my second wedding, I was 12 weeks pregnant with our firstborn, Carson. And so that was interesting because I went for my fitting in my wedding dress and all was well. And then literally 2 weeks later, they could barely fit me in it because I had started to grow in some places already from being pregnant. So if you look on some of my side shots, you can see a tiny little bump, but you'd really have to know me to be able to tell that. So that's special, just knowing that Carson was there with us. But we had already been married 5 or 6 months. But it was funny because when we first got married, our first wedding, I had so many people messaging me are you pregnant? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's not why I'm getting married. I'm getting married because I found an amazing guy. And so then in December of 2015, the day after our 1-year anniversary. All right, y'all. So we spent our first anniversary in the hospital. The day after our anniversary, little Carson was born. Isn't he the cutest? And yes, he was born with that much hair. He was 5 or 6 days old here. Head full of hair. And no, I didn't have any heartburn. Weird, right? man, he's something else. He will be 5 this year already, you guys. It just blows my mind. And it's true what they say. The older you get, the faster life goes. And then when you have children, if you've been able to have children, you'll know what I'm talking about. You stay so busy with kids that you're just running nonstop. And then your life just flashes before you. Like, we can't remember a time because you think we only had like I don't even know, like a year and a half of us time before like the baby came, maybe a little bit over that. But that was so long ago, right? I mean, Carson's going to be 5 this year. So it's always been, us and a baby for the most part. And then we had Rhett 21 months later. And then Tora, we just had 7 months ago, which was 2 years after we had Rhett. And I'll show y'all their pictures sometime. But it's just been incredible. And so I just wanted to give you some history on that and just answer a few questions. So how do we keep it light and fun? We're silly about everything. We love The Office. The Office is one of our favorite shows. And like today, we were outside throwing the Frisbee in the yard, and I, like a total crazy person, was jumping off the trees yelling, parkour, If you've seen The Office or you know anything about that, you'll know what I'm talking about. So just silly about everything, right? I mean, when we're sitting there at the dinner table, and that really works because we have children, right? So you have to be silly anyways. But we just don't ever take things too serious. We don't take offense from one another easily either. So if he's having a bad day, I'm going to give him his space. We are so much alike in so many ways. I give him his space, and the same for me. And so we know when to just be there and when to back off and when to be silly and when to be serious. We respect one another's feelings. If he's feeling one way, I don't belittle that or say it's silly. He doesn't do that for me either. We are each entitled to our own feelings and our own thoughts. All of our, religious and political views are the same, so there's never any argument there. And we are spiritual people. That's the biggest thing for our marriage, right? So we both grew up in church, but it wasn't until we got married and we started going to small groups together, which is like a Bible study group, and volunteering in our church and doing marriage groups and meeting other couples, that our marriage really took off in a way like no other. We watched older couples and how they were together. We talked to several of them, kind of learned from their mistakes, if you will. And I feel like, I'm not going to say I'm waiting for the ball to drop, because I'm not. I'm a positive person. But, I always hear from people how hard marriage is. And for me, I'm just kind of like, wow, it hasn't been hard yet. The first year, because of some things with me from my childhood, which I'll go into that sometime in another video, it was hard for me, but not for him. But as far as us as a couple together, I don't know. I guess I've just been extremely lucky and extremely blessed. Now I know, hey, we've only been married 6 years, right? Coming up on 6 years. Tough times are ahead. Life is ahead. Life happens. So I know that there will be challenges that we go through. But the most important thing to us when making all choices or going through anything is keeping God at the center. And I don't say that lightly. I literally mean that with everything. If there's a job opportunity that comes up, if there's a trip that comes up, if there's something expensive or a big life decision that we need to do or something to buy, we always talk. We never, ever, ever, if it's over $100, and even then we tell each other, but if it's over $100, we call the other one and say, hey, I'm going to do this. Is that cool? Whatever, and it's not about permission. It's just showing respect, right? We don't have the his money, her money. It's our money. And I know everybody has their own opinion on that. I'm not saying our way is right. I'm just letting you know what we do and works, good for us. And so that's another way that we choose to show respect to one another, is that we just always stay in constant communication as far as making big choices and big decisions. And we always come together and pray about things first. It's very easy to really, really want something regardless of what your spouse wants and what God wants. And I promise you 100% of the time it's going to end up a mess if you are not on board with what your spouse wants and what God wants. And sometimes it's not, and all the time it's not going to work. If your spouse is wanting something and God's telling you this really isn't the best thing, you and your spouse might get in a tiff about it. But ultimately, if it's God's will, it's going to work out. So like I said, you're going to go through life. You're going to have ups and downs. I know there's a lot that awaits Ricky and I, but I'm honestly excited about what the future holds for us because, oh my goodness, in the first 5 years of our marriage, we built a house. I started teaching. We had 3 children. Then I started staying home. I told him, I was like, what are we going to do for the next 5 years? Like, we've done everything big, right? So now we're just enjoying our babies growing up, and we've just had our last baby. I got my little girl. We have 2 boys and a little girl, 4, 2.5, and 7 months, and we are just living life to the fullest. But that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you guys today. So how do we keep our marriage intact and awesome? We are silly. We have fun together. We do everything together, right? I mean, if I really want to go and have like a girl time with a friend, I can go down. Like, no one's saying they can't do that. But we, as a rule, we're the type of couple that wants to do everything together. So even if we're apart, we're like, this is fun, but I really miss you. I wish you were experiencing this with me. So we enjoy each other's company. We laugh at everything, and we keep everything centered around our God. So that is a little bit about Ricky and Ashley. And like I said, probably this weekend, as soon as he's home, everything with COVID-19's kind of messed up his schedule. So when he's home this weekend, we are going to film a Q&A for us. So if y'all have any questions, send them to me and we'll see what we can answer, because I know, we only have a certain amount of time to be able to video and answer those. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your Friday, and we will see you soon.